Thanks for being here, and I know it's the last session of the day, but we're going to have a great time. So what we're going to look at this afternoon, and in fact for this week, this is my technical session. I'm going to show you how you maximize Project 2010 with Office 365. Well, the title says Office 365 really applies to SharePoint. So what we're going to look at and talk about is, from a project management perspective, what does SharePoint provides, but more importantly, what are the other Microsoft tools that we can take advantage of? So we'll talk about the project server, and if we have time, we'll take a peek at 2013 and see what's in store. So before we get going, Project Management Institute did a survey to a bunch of project managers around the world, asking them, what is the tool that you can't live without as a project manager? What do you think the answer was? What's that? Email. Very good, sir. All right. You get a book. Email. We're in 2013, and we're still an email-driven group. What's wrong, Doug? So it kind of works. It does, but kind of. It could be better. We have all the necessary tools in our fingertips today to make all this much better. So, Dan, here's what we're going to look at. We're going to talk about how we take advantage of Microsoft Project with SharePoint, and again, Office 365, really just a suite of Microsoft tools. And I'll take you through how you think about using these tools. Because one common misconception is when people think project management, automatically, oh, Microsoft Project, or automatically Project Server. Sometimes, but in certain cases, you don't have to. And that's what we're going to look at as well. And, you know, I've met most of you, so that's my quick background. And I'm recording this session just like all my other sessions, so you have a copy of the recording. And on the desk, we've got a couple of things, but if you fill out that evaluation card, I've got a bunch of books here, so I'll just draw that once we're done, okay? Okay, so let's get started. Before I start showing you stuff, let's ask the fundamental question. Is Project with Office 365 the silver bullet? Will this solve every project management pain that we have? I like this picture. Just kind of read it out. It's kind of small. So this depicts a typical project management environment. You know, this is what the customers think they need. They expect, yeah, I kind of want to swing with 3 chairs, you know. This is how the project leader understood it. This is what the analyst designed. How the programmer wrote it. What the consultant recommended. Classic consultant, lights and angels singing. Ah. How it was documented. Our favorite activity, documentation. What operations installed, how the customer was billed, how it was supported, what the customer really needed. We laugh, but that's what's happening today in our project environment. Right? Victor, why do you think that is? Why do you think this happens?
You know what? I get it. Everyone sees everything so different.
So what's the problem? What's an issue? People look at it differently. Right? What else? What do you think the problem? Why do these things happen in project? Planning, communication, lack of, or sometimes it's irrelevant. Don't you love it when you get copied on every single freaking email that's nothing to do with you? Then you make it go to spam. But I bet you nobody's thinking here with us because we have a bad project management tool. That's why that happens. And what I want to point out here is a tool is a tool is a tool. A lot of times customers come to me and say, hey, docs, we want project server, we want SharePoint for project management. I ask them, why? Oh, our projects are behind, you know, out of budget, out of scope, so we need a tool because a tool will fix it. It won't. Project management, while tools are important, it's a 3-pronged beast. Who's doing it, how they do it, and the tools that they use. And all of these should go lockstep. A lot of us are in this bucket. You know, today, while there are practicing project managers, your PMPs, most of everyone, they're not. In fact, they don't care for project management. Docs, I'm a marketing person. I just have to do this project. These are what I call reluctant project managers. Right? How do they run their project? They don't have a formal background. They just put a seat their pants with these tools. And it works to a certain extent, but it's not repeatable. And then collectively as an organization, it's a problem. So what happens? If it becomes a problem, management or somebody wise in IT saying, let's stick in Project Server. Let's stick in Primavera. Everybody see Primavera? Clarity. Everybody Clarity. A lot of these fancy project management tools. And what happens? Anybody use Project Server before? Yeah? Folks in your organization love it, right? No. Because while you can accelerate the maturity of the tool, if these two don't follow, tough luck, gang. So, what I'm recommending here, and I'm sure Bill would agree.
We only want one session next week.
Okay, all right. Sorry about that.
Love you, buddy.
All right. So I'm sure Bill would agree. I thought he was going to give me props there. So all these should move lockstep, right? And what I'm going to show you, at least in this presentation, is how do we take our reluctant project managers and move them so that at least there's some sense of standardization and some sense of using better tools other than email and Excel, and you know how all that goes. So in the world of project management, there's this concept and there's this idea of having a project management information system. In fact, it's a standard terminology. It's called PMIS. But by definition, what it is, essentially, it's a keychain that's going to hold your project-related stuff together, from artifacts to communications, everything about your project. Number one PMIS today is email. What's that schedule? Let me check on it. Is that report? Let me check on it. Not good. So, what does Microsoft have in store? At the very fundamental level, obviously, Microsoft has email, Outlook. That's our project management tool, but obviously it's not intended for that. So depending on your needs, so let's say your maturity, meaning the needs you have are on this end of the spectrum, and all you need to do is keep action items. I just need to manage my task stuffs, but somebody has to see it, for example. With that being said, maybe just use the task list in SharePoint. Take that off, 100%, we're good. But docs, it turns out I need to work with a couple people, external vendors. We need to update documents same time. We need to collaborate. SharePoint can do it, coupled with existing tools that we use. I'm not saying you forget email, you don't use Excel, still use it, but we can make it better. Docs, I need better scheduling. While SharePoint is a project task list, there's Gantt charts, all that good stuff. You can't do more complex scheduling, like start changing dependencies. I need to figure out resources. I can't do that in SharePoint. I'll use Project Pro on the desktop with SharePoint, which I'll show you. And then as you elevate into your maturity, right, I need more visibility across projects. I need to know what resources are working on. Don't you love it? Every Tuesday morning, you get together in a meeting, you pull up an Excel. What's developer number 1 doing this week? Do you have capacity for developer number 2? You do that, right? In an Excel file. And then you're trying to figure out how do we prioritize if this is important, which project we not do, which project we do first. Excel can't help you. That's where tools like Project Server comes in, and I'll show that to you. And last but not least, you go into more mature situations where you need forecasting, demand management. Right? I need my dashboards and KPIs, all that good stuff. Again, Project Server is a great tool for that as well. Now, let's get started here. So, why Office 365? I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this, but for those that are not, essentially Office 365, Microsoft took a lot of their server products and put it up in the cloud, which for us, we don't have to deal with the infrastructure. Swipe your credit card, it's there. So these suite of tools are there. And in 2013, even Project Server is up on Office 365 as well. It's called Project Online, which is kind of cool because it's a set of project server environment. It's just a pain. Okay, so let's get going here. How do we make all this work? So I'm going to step you through a scenario here and kind of show you a typical project life cycle. So let's say you get started with a project. Let's think through what happens when you get started with a project. So if somebody were to ask, hey, Alan, go start working on this, whatever, right? First thing we do is typically we fire an email and start contacting people. Hey, I've been assigned to do this. Where's that template? Who's that vendor? Blah, blah, blah. Y'all with me? What if we take that back and make it more efficient so that we can not only centralize information, but we can improve communication, generate reports, and have a deep integration with tools that we use, like Office. So let me give you an example. So here's my case study or my story. So I work for a company called SharePoint Cafe. We open coffee shops around the world. I'm a project manager. I don't have no clue about programming and build websites. But my job is to open these coffee shops for my company. I got a call from my boss. Hey, docs, you're going to go to San Francisco. You're going to open this coffee shop for SPTechCon. So fortunately, our company, we have SharePoint. It's hosted on Office 365. I got the training as a project manager, and I know what to do when I have a new project. Because a part of our process, this is the part where process is important, the first step is when a project gets started or my boss tells me to work on a project, as a part of project initiation, I go ahead and create a project site. It will serve as my PMIS. All the project-based artifact would be sitting here. Okay, all right. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen this. So when I create my site, you see all these templates. But one of the nice things that IT did is IT worked with project managers, and they created a template specific for this type of project, meaning opening a coffee shop. Just like any other templates, it's a site, but guess what? Everything I need for the project is already there, from documents to schedules. From a project manager's perspective, that's huge. So I don't have to worry about contacting people, all that good stuff. So when I hit create, so I kind of pre-did this earlier. So when I hit create, in the spirit of saving time, okay, SFO 2013. There you go. So when I hit create, it created the site, and I've got my project site ready. Not only do I have all the relevant sections I need for my project site, all the artifacts I need to get going, to get started, is already here. Now let's stop and think about this. I know a lot of us here work for IT, but what if your project managers do this themselves? It's a typical model, right? I remember back in the day, if I was a project manager, I needed a project site, who do I call? I call IT. They called you a couple of rounds last night. You get me a project site. Do I get it in like 2 minutes? Not likely. Depending on how important I am, the priority of the project, he's working on other stuff, right? That's IT. So but what I'm proposing here is we talk about empowering people. As long as the infrastructure is set up in place, templates are there, give them, relevant training. Okay? For this kind of project, this is what you do. Now, not only that, once I have my project site, so let me, as you can see, I'm using a Mac. It's not an issue. I subscribe to this whole idea called project management on your terms. Because I believe, especially today, with a great mix of skill set, maturity, low to high, people do projects different. You can't tell people use projects or use SharePoint on my terms. I use a Mac, it's okay. So let me jump into my Windows environment. So what can I do on this project site? So again, let's go back to our storyline here. So as a project manager, I go to my project site. There we have it. So one of the things I do initially is I go ahead and schedule my kickoff meeting. So I go to the project calendar, and when I'm in the project calendar, let me go ahead and enter my kickoff meeting. So I just want to make sure my my team would see this. So the project would get started on the 11th. Yeah. And once it gets started on the 11th, we're going to do our kickoff meeting at 3 in the afternoon to 4. This is a project management tip. If you want to get stuff done, do meetings late in the day. Because if you do meetings first thing in the morning, you'll end up having people talking about, did you see what happened last night Dancing with the Stars? You do a meeting at 4, you get done at 4:30. So, hey, I'm just sharing best practice here. So when I hit save, it's all good, that's fine. Now, one of the key things, and again, this is some of the value I propose and I pitch to my business or to my customers, the business users, is, at this point, they might say, yeah, whatever, Ducks, it's a website. What's a big deal? I can do this in Google, I can use Basecamp, I can go whatever. But one of the key things I pitch here is not only am I able to enter information on this one-stop shop, guess what? I can take this bit of information and connect it to tools I use every day. So now what I just did is I took my project calendar and connected it to Outlook. And again, this is nothing new. This has been there since 2007, some of it 2003. So now, anytime there's data that's added to the project calendar, it shows up in Outlook. And I don't know about you, first thing I turn on when I go to work is Outlook. I leave it on my third monitor. It's right there. And that's how your users are. So I see all the calendar entries, but I can enter it from here as well. So let's say we'll do the requirements, development. All right. And let me hit save. So I enter the information in Outlook. So that same bit of information, gang. Let's see, where'd that go? Here we go. Let me just hit refresh. Same piece of information is available there. And this is important. From a user perspective, I know we love SharePoint, we pitch SharePoint, but to them, they don't really care. If you tell them, yeah, you got this one-stop shop, but you can use Outlook, Excel, Word, OneNote, Link, whatever tools that they're familiar with, then that would be an easier sell, an easier pitch. Now, what else? Other than the calendar, we can enter, you need me to post? I'm not camera shy, what can I say? So other than your calendar, I can connect a bunch of different things, my document library. And again, a lot of these connectivity is much, much better in 2013. There's a lot of new features, and I'll send you resources around it too. So notice this one. I connected my document library. Document library for this project shows up in my copy of Outlook, and it's easy for me, right? Again, if I live in Outlook, I can interact with my project-related data, be it calendar or documents. And if you're like me, I'm working with a bunch of different projects. Now I have an aggregated repository where I could just traverse through. Let me look at the Denver Cafe project, documents in Nashville. It even tells me for stuff that I haven't looked at or seen. Y'all see that? Okay, now almost every, a lot of the out-of-the-box lists I can connect to Outlook, and then we'll look at a couple more in a second. So again, when you get started, take advantage of SharePoint, create a PMIS, create a centralized repository instead of relying on email. So as soon as the project is defined, create a SharePoint site to serve as your PMIS. This will be a centralized repository, and ideally, it should use a site template. Next, what happens next? So in a typical project fashion, once we have our project site already, and then as the project starts progressing, the next step is most likely we'll need to create a schedule. Well, SharePoint comes with a project task list, so you can create a fundamental schedule. It's not as powerful. Project 2010 is a great schedule building tool because it's intended to do that. In fact, anybody remember their first experience with Microsoft Project, the first time you used it? I do. Was it pleasant? I was an assembler programmer, and I remember in the mid-90s, my boss walked up to me and said, hey, you're working on this project, build me a schedule, here's Microsoft Project. I go, how bad could that be? I'm an electrical engineer, I do assembler, Office, PowerPoint, Word, project, I turned that thing on, I'm staring at it for 3 hours. It's like a spreadsheet, I don't really know what to do with it. Just like anything else, It assumes that you're familiar with some project management fundamentals, right? I live in DC. DC is a Microsoft project country. But unfortunately, it's just being used as a glorified Excel sheet. I mean, check this out. How many of you in your organizations, everybody gets fired up a project, they create a schedule, nice Gantt chart. Once it's done, you print it out, everybody has a copy, and that's the end of the tool. Yes? Very expensive tool to use only for that. It has a lot of great capability around tracking, resource management, which I'll show you in a bit. So it does these three things really well. Allows you to develop, schedule, manage your resources, and do reporting, at least at the desktop level. So let me show you an example. So going back to the scenario, okay, I got my project site for the SPTechCon Cafe project. One of the things that I've got going on is that since this was templatized already, a lot of the files I need for the project are there. So my project managers can get started quickly. They don't have to deal with, where's that template again? Where's that change management form? Where's that inventory sheet? It's all here. And part of what's here, since this is a project that we do on a regular basis, right, is a schedule. So this is a Microsoft project file. I'm going to click and open. And as soon as I open it, it's going to interact with my copy of Microsoft Project, and Microsoft Project would open it. And once I have it, there you go. As a project manager, I can take this schedule template and then tweak it to what I need for this project. Y'all with me? Okay? So I'm looking at this, you know, it's a standardized schedule. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and update relevant information. So we're going to start this project 3/11/2013. Okay. All right. And notice as soon as I updated when the start date would be, with all these task dependencies and estimates already configured, it automatically recalculated at least an estimate of what this schedule would look like. Right? And that's a part of this tool. It's a scheduling engine. I know a lot of us use Excel to build their schedule. Well, you can kind of sort of do this in Excel. It's too much work. And the other point is, once we have the schedule identified, the next step is I want to start identifying my resource sheet. So let me look at my resource sheet. And for this project, I know I'm going to use Ducks for the project. And Ducks, okay? And, you know, I want my schedule to be as relevant as it can be. So I know Ducks will be going on vacation. Oops. I'll type here. Starting the 5th through the 29th, right? So March 5th to 29th, he'll be on vacation. And click OK. And unfortunately, since we don't have enough budget, that's the only guy I'll get for the project. It's a big deal, Ducks. Back to life. Yes, sir.
So if this integrates with Outlook, would you be able to pull that person's schedule down from Outlook?
Yeah, that'll
see where.
Very, very good question. Very good question.
What his schedule is.
So what he's asking, because the last thing he wants to have two places, right? The resource would typically update their time, availability. In 2010 in version 2.0, unfortunately, the answer is no. In fact, even if you have Project Server, which has more robust resource management capability, it has no relationship with Exchange calendars and whatnot. However, in 2013, it's changed.
Project 2013 or SharePoint?
All the 2013 suite of products. Exchange,
It has the
SharePoint,
calendar,
correct. So calendaring and tasking, all that's across the board.
so we never have to populate the vacation days. Because those are on everyone's calendar.
Absolutely.
already for years ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in 2013, it's all integrated. But assuming, though, all your products are on 2013. You can't have just SharePoint 2013 and Exchange 2010. Yeah. So all that should be 2013. Okay. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. So
the answer I wanted.
yeah, I'm just a messenger here. Okay. So now what I'm going to do next is, now that I have my resource defined, I'm going to assign the task to the resource, or the resource to the task. So check out what happens. So I'm going to assign resources. Okay. So before I hit assign, what did we say about Ducks? So on vacation most of March, right? So once I hit assign, notice how the dates change. Now why is that? Well, it took into consideration ducks will be going on vacation. Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing?
It slips. Let's split out.
Well, keep in mind, I'm still in the planning mode here. So is this a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, it looks like it's going to take 1 month longer.
You, as a project manager, it's a bad thing. Jobs, great.
Well, using a tool like this, to me, I think it's good, because I'm in the planning stage. I show my boss, hey boss, this is what it's going to look like.
Updated automatically.
Why? Yeah. I mean, why? The boss will go, how come it's going to take that long? Well, the only resource he gave me ducks, right? He's going to go on vacation. Either you tell ducks not to go on vacation or give me another person. You tell me what's important. Is time the most important thing? Then give me another resource. Or is budget the most important thing, that we have to use ducks? Then sorry, time will slip. You can't have, something fast and good that's cheap, anything cheap and fast that's good, and whatever that third one is. Right? So it's a good thing. Imagine if I have a bunch more resources, different schedules. It's just a pain to do this in Excel, right? And then this is something that SharePoint doesn't do. Very advanced scheduling engine. Now, once I do all this, so I'm gonna hit save just to make sure this file, I saved the integrity. What's the next step? So up until this point, we have two things going on. We have our SharePoint site, all our artifacts there, and then we have Microsoft Project on the desktop. Ideally, only people with expertise around Microsoft projects, or your project managers, would be touching it. I'm not recommending that you give everyone a copy of Microsoft Project. You know what happens, right? When you email a Microsoft Project file to somebody else, it comes back as Word. It's all messed up, right? So now, there's still a disconnect, ducks, because what I'm thinking is, I don't want my resource to touch Microsoft Project. All they need to do is go to the project site, but then you got that schedule going. How does it work then? On your project site, you have a project task list where it looks like a Gantt chart, but there's nothing there. Is there a way to push the information? Absolutely. So what I could do, gang, is I can take this information as a project manager. I can hit File, Save and Send, Sync with Task List, right? So I can just copy the URL. Let me go ahead and do that, gang. Copy the URL of that SharePoint site. And by the way, everything I'm showing you is this. It applies to 2013 as well, though 2013 has other new features. So I'm going to click Validate URL. So as soon as it connects to the site, it looks at all the task lists that I have. One of the task lists I have is project task list. So when I hit sync, now it's going to take all this information, including the assignments, push it out to that SharePoint site. Again, this is all project on the desktop in SharePoint. Has nothing to do with project server. Okay, I'm not even talking about that. And what I find a lot of times is organizations, when they roll out project server, I think it's complex. I mean, it does a good job, but a lot of people aren't ready for it. And what it turns out, a lot of organizations roll out project server only for the reason that they want their schedule on the browser. This doesn't. Right? So once it's published, I can bring it up, refresh my project task list, and voila, all the information is already there. Yes, sir.
So this is project on the desktop. The file itself resides in SharePoint. It was created as part of the template, right?
Correct.
And so you don't hit save, you hit publish or whatever to push it back out to SharePoint.
To the task list, correct.
Okay, if you hit save, it tries to save it locally to your
That's fine. So that's a great question. At least in my scenario, since everything's templatized, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can actually start Microsoft Project on the desktop, create the schedule, and save it locally. You can still have the syncing capability.
Can you repeat the steps? Publish it to the SharePoint.
So yeah, everything I'm talking about, I have a step-by-step and I'll send it to everyone. And it's actually on my book, so you got my book. So all the step-by-steps are there. And this session is being recorded too, so you can watch it before you go to bed tomorrow. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be in the library, the MPP file itself. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess actually the related question was, so if you're actually opening it on the SharePoint site from a local version of Microsoft Project,
Correct.
and you try to hit save,
It's going to save back to the library.
it will save to the library. You don't have to do anything special.
No.
Just try to save it to the desktop.
No.
Okay.
So there's two distinct things that's going on here. As a file, the MPP file is in the library.
Yeah.
What I did is I went to the file, went to the Gantt chart, and took that Gantt chart and synchronized it with a project task list. It's only one
Oh,
element
it's
of that file.
syncing it with the project tasks that you're
Correct.
doing. Okay.
And the intent why I did this is I want my resource, later on we'll talk about tracking, I need my resource to tell me where they're at, how many percent, how many hours, all that, and I don't want them to touch project. They don't have to. They just come here and put in their hours. Right? Sir?
So the thing that we've struggled with is this is an individual silo
Yes.
project.
Yep.
And we've always, our project management stuff is pretty immature, but what we want ultimately is to be able to roll everything up and to see, not just from a project basis, but we, like,
Resources.
IT is only available really to do projects probably maybe like 40% of the time, or 60%, or whatever that percentage is, because 5 of the 10 people are occupied this much time
For the
help
support,
desk.
operational stuff.
80% of their day
Yep.
is help desk tickets. The other 20% can
Agreed.
be allocated for project
Right.
tasks.
Yep.
And we want that high level view so that when
Who's doing what? What's the visibility?
who's doing what, and there's been disconnects with the whole Outlook calendar.
Yes.
And
So I will get there. Long story short. What I'm trying to do is baby steps. Yeah. What I'm trying to do is, from the email, you remember the whole maturity? So I'm taking it up a notch. Instead of email, now we're going to use SharePoint, project, and all this stuff. But I'll get to your scenario in a second.
That's
Okay.
a good question.
Yes, Victor.
You know how when you do the indent, task indent?
Yeah.
So how is it, if obviously I have a task
Mm-hmm.
indent, then I put where I can import it out.
If you sync it, yeah.
I sync it.
Yep.
But it only shows that one portion of the task.
It's a subfolder, right?
So how do you make it to, once I get it to the top, I can actually see everything?
You can't in 2010. So what Victor's describing in, on a project, you create a subtask, summary task, and all that. If you sync it to a SharePoint project task list, how SharePoint would display it, it creates subfolders. Unfortunately, that's the case. But in 2013, that's not the case. So next, we talked about initiating and start planning and creating your schedule next. Now, let's talk about the collaborative aspect of project management. Scheduling is only one aspect. Most of the things we do in project is we actually do collaboration. We work with you. So one of the brilliant things that's built into this platform, since you're using Office 365, not only can you use SharePoint as a collaboration tool, but you can do, let me sign into Link. So again, I'm on my Mac. You can do collaboration with other relevant Microsoft tools as well, such as email, Link, Word. So let me show you a couple examples. So for example, let me go to my document library. I'm firing up Link. I'm going to try and see if my colleague is still up and bug him. So first, I go to a document library. We all know what a document library is. So let's say I want to look at this document. It's my change impact analysis worksheet. Again, with Office 365 through Office web apps, can be rendered in the browser. That's cool. But I can also open up in Word and start working on the document. So again, the spirit of everything is a one-stop shop. Everything's there. I can start working on, it's not this one. I'm still thinking. Okay, good. So I'm going to click Edit. So I'm going to start, let's say this is the SPTechCon Cafe Change Impact Analysis Worksheet. And it's going to change it up. So that's cool. I'm just, and let's say I'm looking at this, I'm like, and when I hit save, obviously it'll be saved back to that single repository. So let's say as soon as I hit save, now I'm thinking I need to have somebody work with me on this. Let's talk about collaboration. So, am I connected? Yeah, I'm connected.
Yes.
The connection doesn't work?
Well, it doesn't like the routing.
Yeah. Oh, so you had the same issue?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me try one more thing here. Let me,
It works with your VPN.
actually that's a good point. Let me turn on my VPN. Okay. So let me connect to my VPN, see if that connects. Now what I want to do is I'm going to hit up my colleague and have him work on the same document I'm working on. I see it doesn't even work. And in hopes that we can truly collaborate together. Because one of the things I want to talk about and show you is document co-authoring. Anybody use that? Oh, it's phenomenal. Oh, there you go. So it's up. So I'm going to show you how document co-authoring works. I don't think it connected. Okay. Oh, it did. Okay. Let's see, Mike. Okay. So I'm going to show you document co-authoring. You there, Mike? Let me grab the URL. Copy the URL of this guy. Now copy shortcut. Oh, he's typing. Okay. Can you pretty up this doc for me? Okay. We're both site collection administrators. I thought he was typing earlier.
He did.
Oh.
He said hit down.
Oh, he did? Okay. Good. Sure thing. One sec. Okay, cool. So let me explain what document co-authoring is. Starting in 2010, this is pretty slick. You can have at least up to 4 people at the exact same time in the document. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote included. And what that means is as I'm working on this, it will know, it will prompt me actually, since Mike is on the document, and it'll highlight the section what Mike's working on. Insane. In 2013, it's even better because it also works in Office Web App. So let me make sure. Let me double check. Hey, you on the doc? Oh, there you go. See that? Mike is editing this document. Y'all see that? You can have the maximum 4 people. I mean, think about this. In the previous versions of SharePoint, the way you can really work on documents is you kind of check it out, people work on it. Checkout check-in is a mess. If people check it out, they never check it in, right? It's like Hotel California. But with this, and we use this a lot in my company, especially with build proposals, you work on section 1, you work on section 2, blah, blah, blah. So as that happens, I mean, there's certain refresh time. But it's pretty cool because I am with him here directly using Link, and it's all integrated. As that happens, as he's done working on it, it'll even alert me, Mike is done, do you want to refresh or reload? It doesn't just reload on you because it's going to mess you up as you're working. Yes, sir.
Conflict resolution.
So very good. So conflict resolution. So the way it's going to work, depending on what the person's doing, let's say if he's updating text, it will actually gray out that area. We'll say Mike's working on it. You won't see the actual typing happening, but it's grayed out, right? So you're not going to step on each other's foot. But if he does things like, puts a picture, and notice this, update's available. Yeah. So now I'm going to hit update. I'm going to see what he worked on. Okay, document update's available. Are you sure? Yep. What? So. See what you think now. Funny. Okay, they gave you a round of applause, right, to make you feel good. All right. But it's actually pretty cool. So, do you guys know about this document co-authoring? It's been there. And 2013 is just better.
Do you disable check-in and check-out then?
What's that?
Do you ever have check-out?
It's there.
But you don't.
You don't care for it. You don't have to. As well as version history. So version history is important. Leave that on, right? We can go back in time. But checkout, check-in, consent is a good idea. Nobody really does it.
What about the version history in this case?
What about it?
Version history.
Okay, what about it?
How does it know who changed what in the document? I mean, if you check it out and then he added a picture and then he checks again and you do another change, you know exactly what changes were made by.
Sure, all right, okay, all right. Oh, you're talking about specifically in the document now.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've always wanted that.
So, okay,
You can bring
so
up
there's a
one version
combination.
and it would do the
So, yeah.
differencing tool.
So there's a couple of things you can do. For your scenario, you can combine that with like track changes. You enable track changes, but combined with versioning, this is pretty slick, right? So I didn't turn track changes on because now you can be specific. The beauty with track changes, you can know who did what in the document, but you can't capture a certain point in time, right? With versioning, I can say, I don't really like this, but I don't really know what this thing looked like early on. I could go back and compare a specific version. Take this latest and greatest, and let's look at the very first version of this document. When I hit compare, it's going to take all the information, and then it's going to compare the original, the updated, and it's going to tell me what changed. If you had track changes there, it'll even say who did it.
Who's yours?
What's that?
Yours, good. Thank you for showing us.
Yes, sir.
Is it creating a new version each time and save?
No. It depends how that's set up with versioning, but if you have major version, anytime you hit save. No, not that, especially if you start putting metadata for it, it goes back. Well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's permission space. You have all the versions.
So the more people you have working on a document, the more versions you want to see.
What's that?
The more people you have working on a document, the more versions you want to keep back because.
Yeah, if you want to track.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
to roll back.
Sure.
If you only have 5 versions, and
Well-
you have 4 people working on a doc, it
Well,
will not take you that far.
but here's the thing, Eugene. Out of the box, though, enable versioning, it's unlimited. It's really, you have to put in there how many versions.
Oh, yeah, that one. You do, I mean, we have to put, I think it's like 5 versions back because your database, the content database,
Yeah.
loads.
Depending on the file size, but
Yeah.
you're right. Now, here's the other. What's that?
2013,
It's differential.
so
Now, here's the other thing you want to consider. Just that, I mean, that scenario looks so simple, but how many of your users, is what they do, right? Let's work on this proposal together. Just email 5 people, and they get 20 documents back. They can't get their head around 20 documents. That's a powerful use case. All my users love it. Document co-authoring.
is there a setting that needs to be for co-authoring?
No, it's just there. The only catch is it has to be Office 2010 and SharePoint 2010. So if you have Office 07, SharePoint 2010, that's it. You didn't know about that? There, you're disappointing me. Now, now in 2013, they took it up a notch. Let me kind of explain. In 2010, co-authoring only works at the client level. Important. If you start doing Office web apps, so let's say I was editing that document in Word, Microsoft Word, and somebody went to the Office web app and hit it on the browser, co-authoring won't work. But in 2013, they fixed that. So even if you're updating from the browser, the whole co-authoring still works pretty slow.
So if you're doing 2010 on your desktop, but the sitting in the cloud,
It's 2013?
no, 2010. 2010 SharePoint, Office 365
Okay,
with 2010 on your desktop.
correct.
That would go out.
Yeah, that's what I just
That's
did.
what you just did.
That's what I just did, yeah. But what I'm describing is, if somebody opens a browser, edits a document in the browser in 2010, the Office client won't detect that, co-authoring doesn't work. But in 2013, it's done. In SharePoint. Okay. All right. I don't know why Microsoft don't talk much about that, but it's huge. Every time I I propose that use case, like customers love it, and your users would love that too, because they and then just say, I bet you guys love emailing a single file to 5 people and they do it 20. Okay. Other questions? All right. Another scenario I'm going to show you around collaboration. Yeah. So, see, you really thought you gave him an applause. Here's another scenario. So one of the big, at least in my organization, when we work on projects, a lot of our project sites have discussion. So what's the use case for this from a project management perspective? We now projects you need to communicate. It's so easy to send an email. But the problem is, if the conversation is relevant to the entire project, it'd be nice if it's captured somewhere, right? So part of our process and standard is we say, look, if it's anything specific to the entire team in the project, pop it in the discussion board. So let's say, when is training? Okay? Now, while that looks overly simple, again, it takes an act of Congress for your users to use it. Yeah? So a baby step I found that's amenable to most of my users or my customer is I was saying, okay, tell you what, connect the discussion board to Outlook, because they love their Outlook, which is fine. Okay. So once it's connected to Outlook, the discussion board will show up kind of sort of like an email in Outlook. Just like how I connected the calendar, the library, the contacts list. Anytime there's a discussion post, it's going to pop in Outlook, and they can reply directly in Outlook. Next week is training, as if it was an email. Yeah, I'm going to hit post, and not only can they reply to discussions, they can even post a new discussion. When do we interview vendor? Okay, so notice that I did everything in Outlook. Outlook is behaving as a front end to this project site, because now when I refresh the discussion board, there you go. The new post is there. My response on when training is right there. Yes, sir. What's that, Joshua?
So, one of the problems that I've had is, yeah, it's great to get everything in that. However, if there's like 4 different lists for each project, you're asking the user to connect 4 lists to Outlook. Is there some way to simplify that or make it?
Yeah. Exactly. No, I hear it. I'm sorry.
What a user can do is he can email that.
Yeah, the library. But I think it was describing the calendar.
Yeah, they connect to Outlook. I mean, so right now our practice is basically, you have to go in if you want to know about whenever you share documents.
So connected.
If you want to know
So
about the calendar, book connected.
I mean, on one hand, the plus side, I understand why there's scenarios that have to be standardized. The plus side is you just want to see a code. So there's no answer to your code. There's no quick one button. It just goes back to standards and processes.
It's only 4.
Yeah. There's nothing out there. And 2030 doesn't solve it.
So this might change though in 2013 with those site mailboxes.
Yeah.
You probably use those instead.
Yeah, pretty much. I'll explain site mailbox in a second, but 2013, but you have that exchange 2013 as well. Everything else in 2013, that's how we make you take it more money.
Yeah, so my question, I guess, is a variation of that, which is, so you have to define who is on the team at some point, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that, you're right, so where is that defined? Is that defined as an alias in Outlook or maybe?
So, no. One thing I skipped, when I created a site, right? It's just adding users to the site. It's like any SharePoint
You
site.
just add users to the
Yeah.
site, and then if you connect the discussion board, that's
Correct.
users.
So not anybody could just do this, obviously. If you can come to this project site, you can only do all this stuff.
Yeah. And it creates on the back end, it creates some kind of alias or something in exchange, so it knows that any email to that list is going to
not email or any posting. You're right. There's some. Once I hit connect, there's on the client side, on the user side, it knows how to tie all this together.
Which manage when I can do see those.
Correct.
Can you please features on your post?
Say that again.
Can you please features?
That's actually a good question.
Because that's always a big problem when you're going to use these, right? They want to use the rich content.
Yeah, I don't think so. Have you tried it?
Most click and drag into Outlook work.
Have you tried for discussion boards? I haven't tried it. Let's try it. Here. No, see, it's an attachment.
Or even if you have your clipboard, that's the worst problem, right?
Yeah, copy and paste kind of thing. Yeah, I think it'll show up as an attachment. What's that? It'll be attached to that list. So so when I do that, it's going to show up as it's a new entry. Oh, there's my other environment, but yeah, it'll show up as a new entry, and it'll say it has an attachment. It won't show it. It'll say there's an attached content somewhere.
That one works well, right? Your problem is when you once you basically have a screenshot, it's copied in your clipboard, and
Correct.
you gotta see the file.
Yeah. So you see how there's an attachment. Yeah.
Different than the email.
Yep. Yeah, as you can see, it's not foolproof, but what you want to pitch here is it's still much better than clog in somebody's email inbox or an Excel file sitting in the network here, what else? So let's talk about, mobile access. And here's another scenario, okay? So 2013 made this much better, but in 2010, it's not 2010 fit. So Alan's describing to me a situation. This actually happened for one of our customers is oil and gas organization, and they're growing. They're opening gas stations across the southeast. Just like a lot of construction type projects, they don't really do the building. They have subcontractors doing it. They have project managers who take care of these sites. So their process, they need to track the progress of these projects. All their project managers who have iPads, and they use it for email status and email back to their partners. So what we did with it is they had SharePoint. So we taught them how to use SharePoint for project management. One-stop shop with the school, so now project managers, even with iPads, they have I recommend an app called Share Plus. It's a pretty sweet app. They can now put their task updates all on, which is great. But another scenario that they have is in certain situations where they're building and then there's cracks or they need to take a photo. And in some cases they take videos because they need to explain who walkthroughs. As you can see, this will not pass the permit, blah 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 blah. Well, you do that with iPad. Here's your dilemma. Used to be they email this stuff. They were pictures, that's fine. But videos, they can't use. So sometimes they have to end up sticking the USB and overnighting on things. So talk about mobile. What can we do? So one recommendation I provided, and it worked for them, is use OneNote. Okay, so anybody use OneNote? A lot of us? Okay, so for those that don't know OneNote, it's a client tool, it's a nice little notebook tool. So let me show you, let me go through a couple, let me go to a site here. So I set up a little, on my top level site, let me go to the document library. So here, I have a OneNote notebook. So the idea is, I created this in OneNote, stick it in the document library, and as you can see, Office Web App is rendering it, that's all I have, right? So this OneNote notebook file is the exact same file as this one on my desktop. Y'all follow me? It's kind of like that project file, I open it up the client. But on my mobile device, I'm remote, right? It doesn't have to be a Windows phone, again, iPhone, iPad. I'm opening that same file. And so what I'm going to have you do, I'm going to have you take a picture. You stand there and take a picture. Okay. So I'm going to have Eugene take a picture directly into just tap the middle. Okay. Jeez, where's the middle? Anywhere on the screen. Oh, okay. Yeah. Got it. Okay. So here now, it could be videos, it could be audio, it could be anything, right? So now you took a photo, it's on this one little notebook. It's saving and syncing, right? So now the idea is that content is now posted on one. Keep in mind, it's on SharePoint by learning, workflow, all that. There, it's gonna do whatever you can do. More email, so we save that step. But even better, it's centralized again in the project site, and as soon as this sync, it'll be made available on this OneNote notebook. So that's just one example from a mobile scenario. There's other examples. You can edit Word, Excel, and in 2013, there's little tweaks on mobility that makes it much better. So later I'll bring that back and you'll see it's there. Next, tracking. How do you track your projects, right? So in a typical project environment, we track a lot of different things, from schedule to budget to change. So let me first talk about schedule. So let me hit refresh here. Oh, there you go. Actually a big picture, huh? See? And then at the same time, that same picture, it's available to my client. Instantaneous. Now, let's talk about tracking. So now here's the scenario. So now let's say we're running the project. And I tell my resources, okay, go update your time. It could be percent, it could be hours, however you track. You can synchronize every column in Microsoft Outlook. By default, it's synchronized to default columns. Start, end date, percent complete. You can start doing baseline, track actuals, do all that stuff. So, I want to simplify this for my users. So I'm going to update this view because there's a bunch of columns that they don't really need to see. Make it simple. So I don't even need to show duration, just show start date, finish date, don't show any of the baseline information. Percent complete, that's all I ask them to update, and let me click OK. So now as soon as they do that, my resource can come here, and put in their updates. So my resource can come here and say, okay, write charter, that's 100% done, conduct initial interview, 50%, okay? So the resource updates the information in the browser on the project site. The project manager can now then bring up the project file and hit sync if they have it locally, and that same set of data would synchronize with Microsoft Project. And again, from a project manager perspective, talking about project management on your terms, they can work here, and the data will be there. How would they know? What's that 100% just been synchronized? How would they know it's updated? Well, turn alerting on, enable workflows. So that's one powerful scenario. Now another scenario. Again, I want to go back to Outlook. You can take these, depending on especially if it's a small project, I can take the task list and connect it to Outlook. And once I do that, the task will now show up in the Outlook task list. So which means my resource don't even have to go to the project site. They just, they just come here, update it directly, which synchronizes with SharePoint, which can now synchronize with Microsoft Project. Wicked, isn't it? And it's been there for a while.
There's a medical update in the SharePoint project that you have to open SharePoint project to update.
See that again?
The SharePoint project is a client project, right? What is SharePoint?
We're talking about
Microsoft project. Yes.
Yeah, it's a client. So anytime you close and you open, it's going to sync.
That's what I'm saying. Because right now, you just basically publish the file on SharePoint side, the Microsoft project file.
No. I sync. There's the task list synchronize the project task list.
You synchronize with the website. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So the other aspect you can do here, obviously, is workflows. You can automate a lot of processes with building workflows. You just things like change control. Simple as that. On my invoice, I feel like a board. There's a lot of options, right? So I send you the invoice. So there's a lot of different options here. So, you know, again, let me go back to my project site. I'll show you an example. There's a lot of different things you could do here. So I have a change request custom list. You know, very simple custom list. And you know, I can, right now it's a custom list, I can apply workflows, be it out of the box, or it could be using SharePoint Designer or third-party products like Nintex. But here's another example. So let me show you another example. Here I have a travel request workflow, and in this case, I'm using an info path form, right? It's not even a workflow yet, it's a form. So let me go ahead and create a workflow for you. So what I'm going to do, gang, is for this travel request library, I'm going to go to workflow, add a new workflow, and what I'm going to do is create, is it loading? Yeah, the internet's slow. Okay. Let's just say an approval workflow. Just very simple, you know. Let's call this a travel approval. Okay. The cool thing with this is it can document everything that's going to happen. So create a history, automatically start the workflow when a new item is created. Okay, next. And then I can create all the rules, right? So let's go ahead and assign this workflow. Once somebody submits a travel request, send it to this user, DRS. Now at the same time, you can put different rules. You can have parallel things going on, send it to the student. This approves and do the next thing. Do all that cool stuff, right? Let's just make it simple. When's the due date? How long would you want this workflow to sit? If that person didn't make a decision, you want to ping them again. So automatically reject if one person rejects it. So you could have all this stuff. So let me just hit save. It's very simple. And what's going to happen is, now that I've created the workflow, let me go ahead and try it out. Let me use it. So let me add a new travel request. So let's say I'm going to go to training. Okay, docs. And by the way, again, since this is Office Web Apps, or not Office Web App, InfoPath Services, you can use any browser. They can fill in their iPad, what have you. You know, you can put in all this information. Let me just hit save to make it quick and easy. Let's call this DRS training request. Let me hit save. So that as soon as I do that, let me hit close too. The workflow will kick in. And what's going to happen is, in fact, let me hit refresh on the browser. The request will first go to DRS, which is, I'll get an email saying, hey, a request is going in, look at it. And notice it even gives me the status of this workflow. I can look at the status, and once I bring it up, it'll take me to the status page, so it's still loading. It will show me where the workflow is at, both visually and in text. This is powered by Visio services. What that means, it's the visual representation of where the workflow is at, which is cool. So you know who's supposed to make decisions or not. And then at the bottom, it even gives me a history. It's still figuring it out, but once it figures it out, it's going to show me history. The request came in at this time, at this date, by this person. Now we're waiting on this part of the workflow. Y'all with me? I was explaining this to a government CIO, and he's like, I don't like it, guys. Why not? Yes, because now that means you have to be more accountable. Used to be just stuck in somebody's email inbox. Long live transparency. Yeah, but once that task notice that an email came in, I'm going to show you again. In my email, right? Oh, so I haven't checked. Here we go. Please approve training. So I'm going to open this task. Okay, it says, are you sure you want to do this? Blah, blah, blah. And as soon as I do that, it's still thinking, but a little box would pop up and ask me if I want to approve it, reject it, all that good stuff. Now see that? And all of these things, friends, I'm showing you are all out of the box. It's nothing out of the ordinary. Another aspect from reporting, we're still going on time, right? Is reporting. There's a lot of reporting options in 2010 and 2013, much more. So there's a lot of different scenarios you can use. So let me show you one scenario. So one of the things I described earlier is that, let's see, where, I'm confused. Okay, here. So here's my project site. Let me go back to my project site, SFO. All right. So let's say here's another scenario. I know I showed this in 2 of my sessions. You guys seen this already. So let me do this a quick example. Let me explain what I'm going to do here. So the idea now is I want to report my expenses, right? So I was describing in my last 2 sessions, I said, what if instead of emailing expenses to accounting, what if expenses can be synchronized from the project site to somebody's Excel file in their desktop? So I'm going to do that because I want to show you reporting capabilities. So let's say $400, and let me go ahead and change this to currency. Okay, all right. Okay, so let me take this information, convert it to an Excel table, all right, and publish it to my SharePoint project site, SFO 2013. Let's call this expenses. Okay. So gang, here's what I'm doing here. So the scenario is, starting today, instead of project managers emailing an Excel expense spreadsheet to people in accounting, don't do that. They just enter their expenses on the project site, and it's going to show up in this Excel spreadsheet sitting on somebody's desktop in accounting. Okay. So when I go to my project site, notice there's an expense section, so they can come in here and they can enter the data. So let's say we bought a computer for $1,000. Okay, that same piece of data, notice I'm in my project site, everything's there, can now be synchronized with this Excel file sitting on somebody's desktop somewhere. And again, for them, all they care is expense information. So when I hit synchronize, voila, it's going to show up right there. Just like how project is syncing, how SharePoint behaves at work, it can sync with Excel. Now let's talk about reporting. So here comes your executive. While this looks great, they want their dashboard, right? Because that's how you get promoted. You give your executives dashboard. So what we're going to do is I'm going to insert in the page a very simple chart web part, which, by the way, which kind of ticks me off, they took that away in 2013. In SharePoint 2013, the chart web part does not exist anymore. Nothing.
Just got a problem.
What's that?
I just got a problem.
What do you mean a problem?
I'm gonna have to migrate some websites.
I don't know how that's going to work. The chart web part does not exist in 2013. They want you to use, obviously, Excel services, performance point, Power Pivot, Power
I have a department that create like a 3D Excel spreadsheet and start using those dashboards.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. In fact, I'm going to try and test it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to insert a chart web part, okay? And the goal is I want to visualize the expenses in a pie chart, okay? So I will, yeah, I love the chart web part. I don't know why they got rid of it. Chart web part. Add. So as soon as I add that, there you go. I can configure the behavior of this chart. Are you sure you want to? Okay, let's hit save first. Okay. So now, but obviously you can still buy third-party products and put whatever chart you like. So I'm going to put a pie chart. Yeah, users love this. They love the chart web part.
What's that?
This is all 2010. This is all, I haven't shown anything.
It's not 365.
It is 365. What do you mean? No, it has not. No, the chart web part, what I'm describing, forget it if it's 365 or not. This web part, it doesn't exist in SharePoint 2013, period. On-prem or 365. Okay? So now, let me go ahead and tie this chart to my expense list. Okay? So I'm going to take this information, connect to the expense list, And all right, there we have it. Expenses. And obviously, gang, you can put in formulas, you can change colors, you can do all that stuff. But for simplicity's sake, let me hit finish. And as soon as I hit finish, notice how it's being represented, real-time report. What problem are we solving here? Again, every time you have to deal with grabbing Excel, creating a PowerPoint, sending to your boss, that's what's the status. Since this is connected to Excel, at least the way I have it here, guess what? By virtue of updating in Excel, we bought, you know, chairs, tables, computer, laptops for $2,000, right? Somebody working in Excel can drive that chart. So they update that, boom, voila, power to the people. So, one last thing, I want to address Matt's question. So, let's go back to Matt's scenario. Well, Ducks, this is all good, you know, it's cool, it's nice. Oh, it logged me out. So I'm going to log into my other environment. What if, Ducks, I'm in a scenario now, what you just showed us is great for one-off projects. Right? Single projects, you can go up. But I'm dealing with like 3, 4, 5 different projects. And there's different needs. I need a roll-up on, I got 10 resources, I need to know the capacity, what they're working on, their availability, so I can figure out when they can do work and not do work. And then on another spectrum, I need to look at big picture, schedule my projects and all that. What do you recommend? If you're in that boat, if you're in that scenario, right, SharePoint can't help you. And that's where I recommend Project Server. Listen, here's the deal. I mean, while we have Project Server, we can use Project Server, it's fine. The problem is this thing is too complex. I don't want my users to bitch and complain and say, it's too much. They like SharePoint, but they don't like Project Server. And here's where the value comes in. A lot of organizations I work with think of it as one or the other. Guess what? It's all the Microsoft stack. Project Server is a SharePoint application, right? You can actually provide a solution where SharePoint is the front end to your user. Use Project Server as the engine behind the scenes. Now, you have high-end project managers who want to use Project Server, let them be. Right? You want your high-level folks with reporting needs. I'm going to show you a real example in a second. Project Server can give you that. So, in this example, let me just full screen my remote environment here. Okay, so this is Project Server. It kind of looks. I got simple projects, so I can go in here and pull up projects at a project level. I can go to my resource center, and from a reporting perspective, I can look at resource availability and capacity, all that good stuff, who's working on what when. And from a reporting perspective, I can, especially for my customers or the big boss, here. Let's say portfolio status report, very good. I can, and I'm using SSRS for my reporting. So they can have a high-level roll-up status report that if that's all they want to see, they can click on it, and it's going to drill down and have this report. One pager for project 1, here's the PM, here's the status, here's the team member, and all the data can be coming from SharePoint. In fact, even other line of business systems. We have a financial system hooked up to this environment. Everybody with me? So if you're at that juncture, SharePoint can't do it, but Project Server can. Now, this is a true case study. That's what we did for EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. They have $400 million worth of projects that they need to provide visibility, but the reality is their users are not sophisticated enough to use Project Server. That's fine. So their front end is SharePoint. And this is the actual solution. I'll show you. It's a public site. I've logged in. That's why we see the ribbon. But this is accessible publicly because they're using taxpayers' money. They need to show what's going on with their projects. So I can look at, and they have their different metrics of how they measure their projects. So like the cost, it's gonna load and render this. Oops. Did it time out?
The project server renders that drill down capability.
Yes. So this rendering.
That's what drives that drill down.
Correct.
Usually.
Yeah, so this visual, by the way, is SQL Server reporting services, but all the data, number crunching, all that, it's Project Server. So we're using
SQL Services provides the actual interactive GUI.
the dashboarding because it's much richer, right?
But you had to make all those reports.
I mean, there's out-of-the-box reports, but realistically, every organization has different kinds of reports they want, different standards. So like their KPIs, red to you might not be red for them. So we have to define the rules. But in terms of making the reports, there's a lot of out-of-the-box one already.
Okay. And in regards to finding availability and having that high level project overview, is it necessary for employees to track time at
Hours?
level?
It depends. It's up to you, right? We have
Because
another.
that's been a problem.
Yeah, no.
is-
Well, here's the reality. You tell developers to enter their time in Project Server, they're not going to do it, right? Because we already have a timesheet system, use PFS, they're not going to, which is fine. We have a customer in that situation where wherever their timekeeping system is, we can tie that to Project Server. We had another customer, we don't really care for time. We don't really care for what happened in the past. We just want to know when are you going to get done, how much more time you need. That's all we need. That's all cool. We're not going to use time track. Project Server is flexible enough. It all goes back to what your process is, what you want to capture, and what you want to measure. Okay? Technology is technology.
The only thing you can't answer if you don't capture time is whether or not you're missing right? Or
Right.
at least okay. Yeah.
No, well, so it's a catch-22, right? What a lot of organizations they want, it's interesting. They don't have any maturity, and then suddenly they want, we want the full-blown baseline, actual, no, baby steps, right? Because the problem with that is, yeah. But with Project Server, from a reporting capability, richness, it's there, and it's in the Microsoft stack. Yes, sir.
So I have program managers that tell me the scenario that you just described with multiple projects that need to be rolled